The silence at my parents' dining table felt heavier than the storm clouds gathering outside their suburban Phoenix home. My 8-year-old son, Jake, sat beside me quietly finishing his slice of apple pie, while my sister Amanda cleared her throat with that familiar look of superiority painted across her face. She reached into her designer purse and pulled out a folded piece of paper, sliding it across the mahogany table toward me with deliberate precision. The document landed between my coffee cup and the remnants of Sunday dinner, and I could see the corporate letterhead even before she spoke. "Tommy," she announced loud enough for everyone to hear. "Since you clearly can't provide for your son properly, I thought you might want this." It was a job application for a janitorial position at her company. Jake's face burned bright red with embarrassment, his small hands clenching into fists under the table. I calmly picked up the paper, glanced at it once, then handed it back to her. "I'll pass this along to my assistant," I said quietly. "I own the building your company rents." Amanda's jaw dropped open like a trap door. Dad immediately warned, "Tommy, stop playing games." But I hadn't even shown them the lease agreement yet. The events leading to this moment had been building for 2 long years, ever since I lost my corporate accounting position during the massive layoffs that swept through Phoenix in early 2022. What my family didn't understand was that losing that job became the greatest blessing of my professional life, though I'd kept that truth carefully hidden from everyone sitting around this table. Amanda worked as the operations manager at Pinnacle Marketing Solutions, a mid-size advertising firm located in the bustling Camelback corridor. She earned $75,000 annually and never let anyone forget it, especially during family gatherings like this one. Her corner office overlooked the mountain preserve, and she drove a leased BMW that she parked in the executive section of her building's garage. In her mind, she represented success while I embodied failure. The reality was far different from her perception. After receiving my severance package of $42,000, I'd made a calculated decision that would change everything. Instead of frantically searching for another corporate position, I studied the distressed commercial real estate market that had emerged from the economic uncertainties of recent years. Property values had dropped significantly, and motivated sellers were everywhere if you knew where to look. My first investment was a small office building in Tempe purchased for $180,000 with a 20% down payment. Within 6 months, I'd renovated the space and filled it with reliable tenants, paying market rate rents. The cash flow covered the mortgage with enough left over to fund my next acquisition. Jake spent every other weekend with me per our custody arrangement, a schedule that gave me flexibility to visit properties and meet with contractors during weekdays. My ex-wife, Sarah, had remarried a pharmaceutical sales representative named Brad, and they lived in a gated community in Scottsdale. She'd filed for divorce 3 months after I lost my corporate job, claiming I couldn't provide the lifestyle she expected. The irony wasn't lost on me that her new husband earned less than what my properties now generated monthly. My parents, Robert and Susan, worried constantly about my financial situation. They'd offered multiple times to help with Jake's expenses, not knowing that I'd already established a college fund that would cover his entire education. Mom worked part-time at the local library while Dad had recently retired from his position as a high school principal. Their modest pension provided a comfortable but careful lifestyle, and they genuinely feared I might need their assistance. Amanda exploited their concerns masterfully. During previous family dinners, she'd made pointed comments about my unstable situation and suggested that Jake might benefit from more consistent influences in his life. She questioned my ability to maintain steady housing, provide proper nutrition, and ensure educational stability. Each criticism was delivered with a concerned tone that masked her obvious pleasure in highlighting my apparent shortcomings. The building where Pinnacle Marketing leased their space was my third acquisition, purchased 8 months earlier from a developer facing bankruptcy. The 14-story structure housed 12 different businesses, including a law firm, an accounting practice, a graphic design studio, and several other professional services. Pinnacle occupied the entire ninth floor under a 5-year lease agreement that I'd inherited with the property purchase. What made this situation particularly satisfying was that Amanda had no idea about the ownership change. Her company dealt directly with my property management firm, and all official correspondence came through my assistant Monica, rather than directly from me. The lease payments arrived punctually each month, along with those from my other tenants, generating a steady income stream that exceeded what I'd earned in my previous corporate role. But tonight, as Amanda smugly presented that job application, I realized the time had come to reveal the truth. Her public humiliation of both Jake and me had crossed a line that demanded correction. My son deserved better than watching his father portrayed as a failure, especially when nothing could be further from reality. The climactic moment arrived when Amanda doubled down on her position. "Tommy, you can't keep pretending everything's fine," she declared, addressing the entire table. "Jake needs stability, and this job could provide that. The building owner is apparently very successful, so you'd have job security." She smiled with false sympathy. "Sometimes we have to swallow our pride for our children's sake." That's when I dropped the first bombshell that would shatter her carefully constructed narrative. "Amanda," I said calmly, "I don't need job security from the building owner. I am the building owner. Pinnacle Marketing has been paying rent to my company for the past 8 months." The following Monday morning found me sitting in my property management office in downtown Phoenix, a modest space that handled the administrative needs of my growing real estate portfolio. Monica Stevens, my 26-year-old assistant, had become indispensable to my operations over the past year. She possessed a sharp mind for detail and an intuitive understanding of commercial property management that impressed every contractor and tenant who dealt with her. Pull the Pinnacle Marketing file I requested, settling into the chair across from her desk. "I need to review their complete payment history and any correspondence from the past 6 months." Monica's fingers flew across her computer keyboard, and within moments, she had the relevant documents displayed on her monitor. What she showed me confirmed my suspicions and revealed information that would prove crucial in the coming days. "They're currently 3 months behind on rent," Monica explained, scrolling through the payment records. "The total amount owed is $15,200. Their regional director, Patricia Walsh, has been submitting extension requests every month, claiming temporary cash flow issues that should resolve soon. The lease agreement specified a monthly rent of $5,400 for their 9th floor space, which included utilities and common area maintenance. Pinnacle had been model tenants for the first 5 months after I purchased the building, with payments arriving promptly on the 1st of each month. The problems began in November when their payment arrived 12 days late, accompanied by an apologetic letter from Patricia explaining unexpected delays in client payments. December's rent never arrived at all, followed by January and February. Each month brought increasingly desperate letters from Patricia requesting patience and promising resolution. The most recent communication, dated just 4 days earlier, painted a picture of a company struggling to survive in an increasingly competitive market. "Has Amanda's name appeared on any of this correspondence?" I asked, studying the documents Monica had printed. "Never," she replied definitively. "All communication has come directly from Patricia Walsh or her assistant. Based on their organizational chart, Amanda works several levels below Patricia in the operations department. She probably has no knowledge of the company's financial difficulties." This revelation added another layer to Amanda's humiliating behavior at dinner. Not only was she completely unaware that I owned her building, she also had no idea that her company teetered on the edge of bankruptcy. Her confident presentation of that job application suddenly seemed even more misguided. My phone rang, interrupting my analysis of the Pinnacle situation. The caller ID showed Jake's elementary school, and I answered immediately concerned that something might have happened to my son. Mr. Thompson. This is Mrs. Rodriguez, Jake's third-grade teacher, came the familiar voice. I wanted to speak with you about some concerning behavior I've observed recently. Jake has been telling his classmates stories about your profession that don't seem entirely accurate. My stomach tightened as I realized the implications. What kind of stories, Mrs. Rodriguez? He's been claiming that you're a successful businessman who owns important buildings around the city. While I understand children sometimes exaggerate their parents' accomplishments, I'm worried that Jake might be compensating for embarrassment about your actual employment situation. Some of the other children have been questioning his stories, and I don't want him to develop a pattern of fabricating information. The irony hit me like a physical blow. Jake had been telling the absolute truth about my business success, but his teacher assumed he was lying to cover up shame about his father's supposed failures. Amanda's public criticisms had clearly affected my son more deeply than I'd realized, forcing him into a position where he felt compelled to defend my reputation even when he lacked the full facts. Mrs. Rodriguez, I appreciate your concern, and I'd like to schedule a meeting to discuss this situation in detail. Jake's stories about my business activities are actually accurate, and I think it would be helpful for both of you to understand the reality of our circumstances. After ending the call, I returned my attention to the Pinnacle marketing file. Monica had discovered additional information that painted an even bleaker picture of their financial situation. I contacted Patricia Walsh's assistant this morning, Monica reported. She mentioned that the company is planning significant restructuring next week. They're apparently considering staff reductions and possible relocation to smaller facilities. The pieces of a larger puzzle began forming in my mind. Amanda's confident demeanor and her attempts to position herself as the family's voice of financial wisdom suggested she had no knowledge of her company's precarious situation. She was about to experience her own professional crisis, yet she spent her time attacking my supposed failures. But the most shocking discovery came when Monica pulled up the building's security access logs for the past month. There's something unusual here, she said, pointing to entries from the previous weekend. Someone used Amanda's access card to enter the building on Saturday evening, but the log shows she was accompanied by an unauthorized person. Building security protocols required all visitors to sign in with the lobby guard and receive temporary access badges. The log showed Amanda's card being used at 6:47 p.m. on Saturday, but no corresponding visitor registration appeared in the security database. Can you pull the security camera footage from that time period? I asked. Monica contacted our security company and requested the relevant video files. Within an hour, we were watching footage of Amanda entering the building, accompanied by a tall man in an expensive suit. They proceeded directly to the elevators without stopping at the security desk, clearly familiar with the building's layout. The man appeared to be in his early 40s with silver-streaked hair and confident bearing that suggested professional success. He carried a leather portfolio and seemed to be conducting some sort of examination of the building's features as they moved through the lobby. Do you recognize him? Monica asked. I studied the video carefully, but the man was unfamiliar to me. His presence raised serious questions about Amanda's activities and her knowledge of building security procedures. Tenants were strictly prohibited from bringing unauthorized visitors into the building, especially after normal business hours. The climactic revelation came when Monica discovered the most disturbing piece of information yet. I ran a background check on Pinnacle Marketing's financial situation. She announced, her voice carrying a note of concern. Their problems aren't just cash flow issues, they're facing potential bankruptcy, and there are allegations of financial irregularities in their client accounts. She handed me a printed report from a business credit monitoring service that detailed Pinnacle's declining credit rating and mounting debts to multiple vendors. The company owed substantial amounts to their advertising suppliers, technology providers, and service contractors. Most alarming was a note indicating that Patricia Walsh had been unaware of some financial transactions that occurred without her authorization. Someone has been manipulating their accounts, Monica concluded. The pattern suggests deliberate sabotage designed to force the company into bankruptcy. And based on the timing, I think Amanda might be involved more deeply than we initially suspected. The investigation into Amanda's activities revealed a web of deception that extended far beyond her public criticism of my financial situation. Over the next several days, I discovered that she had been systematically destroying my reputation throughout our community, spreading lies that affected not only my social standing, but also my relationship with my son. My neighbor Carl Williams approached me while I was collecting mail from my mailbox Tuesday evening. Carl worked as a senior loan officer at a local credit union and had been a reliable friend since I moved into the neighborhood 3 years earlier. His expression carried the uncomfortable tension of someone forced to deliver unpleasant news. Tommy, I need to tell you about a conversation I had with Amanda last month. He began glancing around to ensure our privacy. She came to my house while you were at work claiming she was worried about your financial stability. She asked if I'd noticed any signs that you might be struggling to keep up with your mortgage payments. Carl explained that Amanda had presented herself as a concerned sister trying to help prevent a family crisis. She'd suggested that I was too proud to ask for assistance and that the family was considering intervention options to protect Jake's welfare. She'd even offered to facilitate discussions with potential buyers if I needed to sell the house quickly to avoid foreclosure. I told her that you seemed to be managing fine from what I could observe, Carl continued. But she insisted that appearances could be deceiving. She said you'd been borrowing money from your parents and that Jake had been complaining about not having proper clothes for school. None of these claims contained any truth whatsoever. My mortgage payments were current. I'd never borrowed money from my parents since starting my real estate investments, and Jake's wardrobe exceeded the standards of most children his age. Amanda had fabricated an entirely false narrative about my circumstances, then spread it throughout our neighborhood, an extended family network. The depth of her manipulation became clear when I spoke with my cousin Jennifer, who lived in Tucson and maintained regular contact with various family members. Jennifer called me Wednesday evening, her voice filled with confusion and concern. Tommy, I'm calling because I received a very strange phone call from Amanda yesterday, Jennifer explained. She told me that you're facing serious financial problems and that the family is concerned about Jake's living situation. She suggested that I might want to consider offering temporary housing if custody arrangements change. Amanda had been preparing the groundwork for a potential custody challenge, spreading rumors about my fitness as a parent to family members across Arizona. She'd painted a picture of a man unable to provide basic necessities for his child, someone whose pride prevented him from seeking necessary help. But the most devastating discovery came when I learned about Amanda's interference with my parents' estate planning. Dad called me Thursday morning, his voice carrying an unusual formality that immediately put me on alert. Son, your mother and I need to discuss some family financial matters with you. Could you come over this evening after Jake's bedtime? When I arrived at their house in Ahwatukee, both parents sat waiting in their living room with serious expressions and a folder of legal documents spread across the coffee table. Mom looked particularly uncomfortable, avoiding direct eye contact as Dad began speaking. Tommy, last month Amanda approached us with some concerns about your financial management and long-term stability. She suggested that we might want to reconsider certain aspects of our estate planning to ensure Jake's future security. The documents revealed that my parents had revised their will just 3 weeks earlier, removing me as a primary beneficiary and establishing a trust fund controlled by Amanda for Jake's benefit. The new arrangement assumed that I lacked the financial knowledge and stability to properly manage any inheritance that might benefit my son. Amanda presented this as a temporary protective measure. Mom finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. She said it could be changed later once your situation stabilizes, but that Jake's welfare had to be the priority. Dad handed me a letter that Amanda had written to accompany her proposal. In 2 pages of carefully crafted language, she documented her version of my family's job loss apparent inability to find stable employment concerning changes in my lifestyle, and what she described as increasingly desperate behavior in my attempts to maintain appearances. The letter concluded with Amanda's offer to serve as Jake's guardian and financial manager should circumstances require such intervention. She'd positioned herself as the responsible family member, willing to make difficult decisions for everyone's benefit. Reading that letter felt like being punched in the stomach repeatedly. Amanda hadn't just criticized my current situation, she'd actively worked to undermine my future relationship with my family and my son. She'd manipulated our parents' love and concern for Jake into weapons against me. But the final revelation proved to be the most shocking of all. On Friday morning, Monica called with information that connected all the pieces of Amanda's deception into a coherent pattern. "I found out who that man was in the security video," she announced. "His name is Marcus Delacroix, and he works for Southwestern Property Acquisitions, a real estate investment firm that specializes in distressed commercial properties." Monica had discovered that Marcus was Patricia Walsh's ex-husband, divorced from her 18 months earlier following allegations of financial misconduct in his previous real estate position. He'd been terminated from a major commercial development company after an investigation revealed unauthorized access to confidential property information. "Here's the most important part," Monica continued. "I have evidence that Marcus has been feeding inside information to Amanda about Pinnacle's financial problems. They've been dating for several months, and she's been using that information to position herself for property acquisitions when companies like Pinnacle fail." The security footage took on new significance when viewed through this lens. Marcus hadn't been a casual visitor. He'd been conducting a detailed assessment of my building's value and condition. Amanda had used her access card to facilitate his unauthorized examination of the property. Their plan became crystal clear: manipulate Pinnacle marketing into bankruptcy, force me to sell the building at a distressed price, then purchase it through Marcus's connections at a substantial discount. Amanda would emerge as a successful real estate investor while simultaneously proving her claims about my business incompetence. "There's more," Monica added. "I contacted Patricia Walsh directly and asked about Marcus's involvement with the company. She confirmed that someone has been sabotaging their client accounts and vendor relationships, but she didn't know who was responsible. She's been trying to save the company while dealing with mysterious financial problems that seem designed to force bankruptcy." The climactic twist that completed my understanding of Amanda's betrayal came in the form of legal documents that Monica discovered through her research. Amanda had already filed preliminary custody modification papers with the family court, claiming that changed circumstances required review of Jake's living arrangements. The filing painted me as an unemployed single father struggling with financial instability and increasingly erratic behavior. It requested temporary custody modification, pending a full investigation of my ability to provide proper care for my son. Amanda had listed herself as the proposed guardian, supported by character references from family members who had been given false information about my circumstances. The court date was scheduled for the following week, just 4 days after our disastrous family dinner. Amanda had timed everything perfectly, planning to use the weekend gathering to publicly demonstrate my desperation and inability to accept help. The job application had been a theatrical prop designed to show our parents and extended family how far I'd fallen. But Amanda had made one critical miscalculation. She'd built her entire strategy around the assumption that I was actually failing when the opposite was true. All of her manipulation and deception would crumble when confronted with the reality of my business success and financial stability. Armed with comprehensive knowledge of Amanda's deception and Marcus's involvement, I began developing a strategy that would expose their manipulation while protecting my relationship with Jake and restoring my reputation within our family. The legal custody filing demanded immediate attention, but I also needed to address the larger pattern of lies that had damaged multiple relationships. My first call went to Diana Martinez, an attorney specializing in custody disputes and real estate fraud. Diana's law firm occupied the sixth floor of one of my other buildings, and she'd impressed me with her thorough approach to complex legal situations during previous tenant interactions. This case involves multiple levels of fraud and manipulation, Diana explained after reviewing the documents I'd gathered. Amanda's custody filing is based on knowingly false information, which constitutes perjury. Marcus's unauthorized building access and manipulation of Pinnacle's finances could result in criminal charges. We have strong grounds for both defensive and offensive legal action. Diana's strategy involved three coordinated approaches: defending against the custody challenge, pursuing defamation claims against Amanda, and working with Patricia Walsh to document the financial manipulation that threatened Pinnacle marketing. The key is timing, Diana emphasized. We need to present all of this information simultaneously to maximum effect. Amanda's entire narrative collapses once we demonstrate your actual financial position and reveal her motives for the false accusations. While Diana prepared the legal documentation, Monica and I worked with Patricia Walsh to develop a plan that would save Pinnacle marketing while exposing Marcus's sabotage. Patricia agreed to meet with us Friday afternoon in my building's conference room, a setting that would reinforce my ownership position while maintaining professional discretion. Patricia arrived looking exhausted and worried, carrying multiple folders of financial records and correspondence. She was a woman in her early 50s with graying hair and intelligent eyes that reflected the stress of recent months. Her professional demeanor couldn't hide the fear and confusion that had dominated her life since Pinnacle's problems began. "I've been fighting to save this company for 6 months," she began, "but every solution I implement seems to create new problems. Vendors who promised extended payment terms suddenly demand immediate settlement. Clients who were satisfied with our work start questioning our stability. It's like someone has been systematically undermining every effort I make." Monica presented our evidence of Marcus's involvement, including documentation of his access to Pinnacle's financial information through his relationship with Amanda. Patricia's expression shifted from confusion to anger as the pattern of sabotage became clear. "Marcus always resented my business success," Patricia explained. "Our divorce was bitter, and he made threats about ruining my career if I didn't agree to his financial demands. I thought he was just venting his anger, but apparently he was planning actual sabotage. We developed a solution that would benefit everyone except Marcus and Amanda. I agreed to restructure Pinnacle's debt, accepting a lower monthly rent in exchange for a longer lease term and a percentage of their revenue growth. This arrangement would stabilize their cash flow while providing me with potential upside if their business recovered. Patricia would implement new financial controls and security measures to prevent future manipulation while documenting Marcus's sabotage for potential criminal prosecution. She agreed to provide testimony supporting my case against Amanda's false custody claims. There's something else you should know," Patricia added as our meeting concluded. "Amanda has been asking questions about employee termination procedures and severance policies. She's apparently concerned about job security, though she hasn't mentioned specific reasons for her worries. This information suggested that Amanda suspected Pinnacle's financial problems might affect her employment, which explained her increased desperation to establish alternative income sources through property acquisition. Her plan to acquire my building represented not just financial opportunism, but an escape route from her own impending unemployment. The most satisfying development came when Diana discovered additional evidence of Amanda's deception through her investigation of the custody filing. Amanda had submitted fabricated documentation to support her claims about my financial instability, including fake eviction notices and collection letters supposedly sent to my address. These documents contain multiple legal violations, Diana reported. The formatting doesn't match legitimate collection agency standards. The dates are inconsistent with actual court filing procedures, and the company names don't correspond to real businesses. Amanda created these documents specifically to support her custody case. Diana's research revealed that Marcus had provided templates and guidance for creating the fake documentation, drawing on his knowledge of real estate and legal procedures. Their conspiracy involved not just financial manipulation, but outright fraud in legal proceedings. We have grounds for criminal prosecution, Diana concluded, but I recommend focusing on the custody defense and civil remedies unless you want to pursue more aggressive action. The evidence we've gathered will be more than sufficient to discredit Amanda's claims and restore your parental rights. Meanwhile, Jake had begun asking questions about the tension he'd observed during our weekend visits. Children possess remarkable sensitivity to adult emotional states, and he'd clearly noticed changes in my behavior and his aunt's increasing criticism during family gatherings. "Dad, why does Aunt Amanda always seem mad at you?" he asked during our Saturday morning breakfast. "She says things that make Grandma and Grandpa worry, but I don't understand what she means." I realized that Jake deserved age-appropriate honesty about our family situation. Continuing to hide the truth would only increase his confusion and potentially damage his relationships with extended family members who had been given false information about our circumstances. "Jake, sometimes adults make mistakes about understanding each other's situations," I explained carefully. "Aunt Amanda has some wrong ideas about our life together, and I'm working to help her understand the truth. You don't need to worry about our house or our future. We're doing very well, and nothing is going to change that." Jake's relief was visible and immediate. "I told my teacher that you own buildings and have a successful business, but she thought I was making it up. Can you show her that it's true?" That conversation led to scheduling a meeting with Mrs. Rodriguez to provide documentation of my business activities and financial stability. Jake's school needed to understand that his stories about his father's success were accurate, not compensatory fabrications designed to hide embarrassment. The climactic moment in developing my counter strategy came when Monica discovered that Amanda had scheduled a family meeting for the following Sunday, the same weekend as her planned custody filing. She'd invited all of our extended family members supposedly to discuss Tommy's situation and develop a coordinated support plan. She's planning a public intervention, Monica realized. The timing matches her court filing perfectly. She wants to demonstrate family consensus about your unfitness as a parent, probably hoping to use that consensus to support her legal case. But Amanda had unknowingly provided me with the perfect opportunity to expose her deception in front of everyone who mattered most. Instead of allowing her to control the narrative, I would use that family gathering to present the truth about both my success and her manipulation. "Let's give Amanda exactly what she's expecting," I told Diana and Monica. "We'll attend her family meeting with complete documentation of everything we've discovered. She's counting on me being defensive and desperate. Instead, she'll face the reality of my business success and her own legal jeopardy." The stage was set for a confrontation that would resolve all of the lies and manipulation that had damaged my family relationships. Amanda's carefully constructed plan was about to collapse in the most public and humiliating way possible. The week leading up to Amanda's planned family intervention became a period of intensive preparation that would determine not only the outcome of her custody challenge, but also the future of my relationships with everyone I cared about most. Diana Martinez coordinated with my accountant, property manager, and business attorney to compile comprehensive documentation that would demolish every false claim Amanda had made about my circumstances. We need to present this information in a way that's immediately understandable to people without business or legal backgrounds, Diana explained during our Monday morning strategy session. "Your parents and extended family members need to see clear evidence that contradicts everything Amanda has told them, but the presentation has to be accessible and convincing." Monica worked with my accountant to prepare simplified financial statements that demonstrated my property portfolio's value and income generation. The documents showed that my real estate investments had generated more than $200,000 in revenue over the past 18 months with net profits exceeding my previous corporate salary by 30%. The property deeds and lease agreements provided concrete evidence of ownership that couldn't be disputed or misinterpreted. My building portfolio now included 5 commercial properties with a combined value approaching $2 million, all purchased and managed through careful investment and renovation strategies. The beauty of real estate investment, my accountant observed, is that the evidence is literally set in stone. Amanda can claim whatever she wants about your financial situation, but property ownership is a matter of public record that anyone can verify. Diana's investigation into the fraudulent documents Amanda had submitted revealed even more extensive deception than we'd initially suspected. The fake eviction notices contained legal language that wouldn't appear in legitimate court filings, and the collection letters referenced debt amounts that exceeded my monthly income during the periods when they were supposedly sent. Amanda's biggest mistake was creating documents that are too perfect, Diana explained. Real collection letters contain minor formatting inconsistencies and bureaucratic language that varies between agencies. These documents are too professionally formatted and legally precise, which actually proves their fabrications. The most damning evidence came from Marcus's involvement in creating the fraudulent documentation. Diana's forensic examination revealed that the fake letters had been created using legal templates from Southwestern Property Acquisitions, Marcus's employer. The digital metadata embedded in the document files contained creation dates and author information that directly linked them to Marcus's computer system. This elevates their conspiracy from family manipulation to criminal fraud, Diana noted. Using professional legal templates to create false evidence in custody proceedings constitutes multiple felony violations. Marcus faces potential prosecution for fraud, conspiracy, and interference with judicial proceedings. Meanwhile, Patricia Walsh provided testimony and documentation about Marcus's sabotage of Pinnacle Marketing that supported our broader narrative about his character and methods. Her willingness to cooperate stemmed from both professional integrity and personal anger about her ex-husband's destructive behavior. Marcus has been systematically destroying everything I've worked to build, Patricia explained during her recorded statement. He used his relationship with Amanda to gain access to our financial information, then manipulated our accounts to create the appearance of mismanagement and instability. Patricia's testimony would be crucial in establishing Marcus's pattern of deceptive and manipulative behavior, which supported our claims about his involvement in fabricating evidence against me. Her professional reputation and detailed knowledge of the financial manipulation provided credibility that would be difficult for Amanda to challenge. The investigation also revealed that Amanda's employment at Pinnacle Marketing was less secure than she'd portrayed to our family. Patricia confirmed that the company's restructuring would involve significant staff reductions, including several positions in Amanda's operations department. Amanda's job performance has been adequate but not exceptional, Patricia reported. Given our need to reduce operational costs, her position is definitely vulnerable in the upcoming restructuring. She may be aware of this possibility, which could explain her increasingly desperate behavior. This information provided additional context for Amanda's frantic efforts to acquire alternative income sources through property investment. Her plan to purchase my building at a distressed price wasn't just opportunistic, it was potentially necessary for her own financial survival. But the most emotionally significant discovery came when I learned about Amanda's impact on Jake's relationship with his extended family. My cousin Jennifer called Tuesday evening with information that revealed how deeply Amanda's lies had affected everyone's perception of my parental abilities. Tommy, I need to tell you about conversations I've had with other family members over the past few months. Jennifer began, her voice carrying obvious discomfort. Amanda has been systematically contacting everyone, sharing her concerns about Jake's welfare and suggesting that intervention might become necessary. Jennifer explained that Amanda had created a narrative portraying Jake as a victim of my financial irresponsibility and emotional instability. She claimed that Jake was embarrassed about his living situation, worried about basic necessities, and increasingly withdrawn during family gatherings. She's been building consensus for custody modification by presenting herself as the only family member willing to face difficult truths, Jennifer continued. Most people believed her because she seemed so well informed about your situation and genuinely concerned about Jake's welfare. The family members who received Amanda's manipulative communications included aunts, uncles, and cousins across Arizona and neighboring states. She'd been preparing them to support her custody challenge by establishing a foundation of concern about my fitness as a parent. The most disturbing part, Jennifer added, is that Amanda specifically asked several family members to avoid direct contact with you about these concerns. She claimed that you were too proud and defensive to accept feedback and that approaching you directly might make the situation worse for Jake. This strategy had effectively isolated me from potential support within our extended family while building Amanda's credibility as an informed and caring advocate for my son's welfare. She'd used their love for Jake as a weapon against me, manipulating their concern into support for her deceptive narrative. Diana's legal team discovered that Amanda had even contacted Jake's school counselor, expressing concerns about potential signs of emotional distress or behavioral changes that might indicate problems at home. The counselor had been monitoring Jake for indicators of neglect or abuse based on Amanda's false reports. Fortunately, Jake's academic performance and social behavior have remained consistently positive. Diana reported, so the school hasn't found evidence supporting Amanda's claims, but her willingness to involve child welfare authorities demonstrates the extent of her manipulation campaign. The evidence-gathering process also revealed Marcus's criminal background, which included previous allegations of financial fraud that had been resolved through civil settlements rather than criminal prosecution. His pattern of manipulating business relationships for personal gain extended back several years before his involvement with Amanda. Marcus represents a significant threat to anyone who trusts him with confidential information, Diana concluded. His history shows repeated violations of professional ethics and legal boundaries when pursuing personal financial goals. The final piece of evidence came from security footage analysis that revealed the full extent of Marcus's unauthorized building access. Camera records showed that he'd visited my building on multiple occasions, always accompanied by Amanda, and always conducting detailed examinations of the property's features and condition. They've been planning this acquisition for months, Monica realized. Marcus has been performing comprehensive due diligence on your building's value and renovation potential, assuming that Pinnacle's bankruptcy would force you to sell quickly at below-market prices. The security footage also captured conversations between Amanda and Marcus that could be partially reconstructed through lip-reading analysis. While not legally admissible, these conversations suggested coordination between their building assessment activities and Amanda's custody filing timeline. By Thursday evening, we possessed comprehensive documentation that would completely discredit Amanda's custody challenge while exposing her broader pattern of manipulation and deception. The evidence was overwhelming, professionally presented, and legally sound. Amanda's entire case collapses under the weight of objective facts, Diana summarized. Her claims about your financial instability are contradicted by documented business success. Her concerns about Jake's welfare are undermined by his consistent academic and social performance. And her credibility is destroyed by evidence of fraud and manipulation. The stage was set for Sunday's family gathering, where Amanda expected to present her case for custody modification to a sympathetic audience of concerned relatives. Instead, she would face comprehensive evidence of her deception and the potential legal consequences of her fraudulent activities. Jake spent Thursday night at my house unaware of the legal and family drama surrounding him, but clearly relieved by my reassurances about our stability and future together. Watching him complete his homework at our kitchen table, confident and secure in our shared life, reinforced my determination to protect him from Amanda's manipulation while restoring honest relationships within our family. "Dad, are you excited about Sunday's family dinner?" he asked while organizing his school supplies. "Aunt Amanda said it would be really important and that everyone would be there." "Yes, Jake. I think Sunday will be very important for our whole family." I replied, meaning every word in ways he couldn't yet understand. Sometimes families need to have honest conversations about important things, and I think we're ready for that kind of honesty. The countdown to confrontation had begun, and I felt prepared to defend both my reputation and my relationship with my son against Amanda's calculated assault on our family's foundation. Sunday afternoon arrived, with the clarity of desert sunshine streaming through my parents' living room windows, as family members gathered for what Amanda had billed as an urgent discussion about my circumstances and Jake's welfare. She'd arranged the meeting with the precision of a corporate presentation, complete with prepared talking points and supporting documentation that she believed would convince everyone of my unfitness as a parent. Amanda had invited 12 family members, including my parents' cousin Jennifer from Tucson, Uncle Michael, and Aunt Carol from Flagstaff, and several other relatives who rarely gathered except for major holidays or family emergencies. She'd also brought an unexpected guest, Linda Harrison, whom she introduced as a family court mediator, willing to provide professional guidance about custody and child welfare issues. I appreciate everyone taking time from their busy schedules to address Tommy's situation. Amanda began standing near the fireplace, with a folder of documents spread across the coffee table. "I know these conversations are difficult, but Jake's welfare has to be our primary concern." Jake sat beside me on the sofa, confused by the formal atmosphere, but trusting my earlier assurance that everything would be fine. His presence added emotional weight to Amanda's presentation, as she'd clearly calculated that family members would be more receptive to her concerns while watching my son's reactions to the discussion. Amanda's opening statement painted a picture of financial desperation, masked by pride and denial. She claimed that I'd been borrowing money from multiple sources while refusing to acknowledge the severity of my situation. She presented the job application incident as evidence of my disconnection from reality and inability to accept help when offered. "Tommy's pride is preventing him from making rational decisions about Jake's future," she declared, directing her comments toward the family court mediator. "He's created an elaborate fantasy about business success, while the reality is that he can't maintain stable housing or provide consistent support for basic necessities." Linda Harrison took notes while Amanda spoke occasionally, asking clarifying questions about specific claims or requesting additional details about my alleged financial problems. Her professional demeanor suggested experience with family custody disputes, and she seemed to accept Amanda's narrative as credible and concerning. But Amanda's presentation contained a critical flaw that became apparent when she began distributing copies of the fabricated eviction notices and collection letters that Diana Martinez had already identified as fraudulent. Several family members examined the documents with expressions of surprise and concern, exactly the reaction Amanda had hoped to provoke. These documents show a pattern of financial irresponsibility that threatens Jake's stability, Amanda explained, pointing to specific amounts and dates highlighted in yellow marker. "Tommy has been hiding these problems from all of us while allowing Jake to suffer the consequences of his poor decisions." That's when I stood up and addressed the room with calm confidence that immediately shifted the atmosphere from concern to confusion. Before we continue this discussion, I said, making eye contact with each family member, "I think everyone deserves to understand the complete truth about both my actual circumstances and Amanda's motivations for calling this meeting." I gestured to Diana Martinez, who entered through the front door, carrying several boxes of documentation that Monica had organized for maximum impact. Diana's professional appearance and obvious legal credentials immediately commanded attention from everyone present, especially Linda Harrison. "This is Diana Martinez, my attorney," I announced. She's here because Amanda's concerns about my circumstances are based on fraudulent information, and her custody filing contains multiple instances of perjury that constitute criminal violations. Amanda's confident expression transformed into shock and confusion as Diana began distributing authentic financial statements, property deeds, and lease agreements that documented my business success. The evidence was comprehensive and immediately verifiable, leaving no room for interpretation or denial. Tommy owns a portfolio of commercial properties worth approximately $2 million, Diana explained to the stunned family gathering. His business generates more than $200,000 annually in rental income, placing him in the top 10% of earners in the Phoenix metropolitan area. Uncle Michael examined the property deeds with the careful attention of someone who understood real estate documentation through his own construction business. His expression shifted from concern to amazement as he recognized the properties and calculated their approximate values. "Tommy, this building address," he said, pointing to one of the deeds, "isn't this where Amanda's company is located?" "That's correct," I replied. "Amanda has been paying rent to my property management company for the past 8 months without realizing that I own the building where she works." The revelation hit the family gathering like an explosion. Amanda's face turned pale as the implications became clear, while Linda Harrison requested copies of the lease agreements that proved my ownership claim. But the most devastating moment came when Patricia Walsh arrived as my invited witness, carrying additional documentation about Marcus's sabotage of her company and his relationship with Amanda. Patricia's professional appearance and obvious distress commanded immediate attention from everyone present. "I'm Patricia Walsh, Regional Director of Pinnacle Marketing Solutions," she announced to the gathering. "I'm here because Amanda's boyfriend has been systematically destroying my company, while she provided him with inside information and building access to facilitate their property acquisition scheme." Patricia's testimony revealed the full extent of Amanda and Marcus's conspiracy, including their plan to force my building sale through Pinnacle's bankruptcy, while simultaneously using fraudulent custody claims to damage my reputation and parental rights. The security footage of Amanda and Marcus conducting unauthorized building assessments provided visual evidence that even the most skeptical family members couldn't dismiss. Watching Amanda use her access card to facilitate Marcus's examination of my property while planning to acquire it through deceptive means created a moment of stunned silence in the room. The documents Amanda distributed today are fabrications created by Marcus using legal templates from his employer. Diana continued presenting the forensic analysis that proved their fraudulent nature. Every eviction notice and collection letter is fake, designed specifically to support false custody claims. Linda Harrison examined the fraudulent documents with professional skepticism, quickly identifying the formatting inconsistencies and legal inaccuracies that Diana had discovered. Her expression shifted from neutrality to obvious displeasure as she realized she'd been brought to witness a presentation based on fabricated evidence. "Ms. Thompson?" She addressed Amanda with formal coldness. "These documents contain multiple legal violations that could result in criminal prosecution for fraud and perjury. I'm required to report suspected fabrication of evidence in custody proceedings to the appropriate authorities." Amanda's carefully constructed presentation collapsed entirely as family members began asking pointed questions about her motivations and methods. The job application that had seemed like concerned intervention now appeared as calculated humiliation designed to support false legal claims. Jake watched the proceedings with wide eyes, gradually understanding that his aunt had been lying about his father's circumstances while attacking their family's reputation. His confusion transformed into quiet anger as he realized that Amanda's criticisms had made him feel ashamed of a situation that was actually successful and stable. "Aunt Amanda," Jake said, in his clear 8-year-old voice that carried throughout the silent room, "why did you tell everyone that Dad couldn't take care of me? He takes really good care of me, and now I know he's successful too." The emotional impact of Jake's simple question created a moment of profound discomfort for everyone present. Amanda had manipulated a child's relationship with his extended family based on lies designed to support her own financial and legal schemes. Dad spoke for the first time since the meeting began, his voice carrying the authority of someone who'd spent decades dealing with difficult family situations through his work as a high school principal. "Amanda," he said quietly, "we need to understand how this situation developed and what you were hoping to accomplish. These are serious accusations that go far beyond family disagreements about financial management." But the final climactic moment came when Marcus arrived unexpectedly, apparently summoned by Amanda's desperate text messages as her presentation collapsed. His entrance provided the perfect opportunity to confront both conspirators simultaneously with comprehensive evidence of their deception. "Marcus Delacroix," Diana announced as he entered the room, "you're being served with legal notice of civil proceedings for fraud, conspiracy, and interference with judicial proceedings. The evidence against you includes security footage, digital forensics, of fabricated documents and testimony from multiple witnesses." Marcus's shocked expression confirmed his guilt more effectively than any confession could have achieved. His attempts to deny involvement were immediately contradicted by the video footage of his unauthorized building access and the forensic evidence linking him to the fraudulent custody documentation. The family gathering that Amanda had orchestrated to destroy my reputation instead became the public revelation of her own criminal behavior and manipulative character. Every false claim she'd made about my circumstances was contradicted by documented evidence, while her true motivations were exposed for everyone to see. Linda Harrison concluded her involvement by informing Amanda that she would be reporting the fraudulent documentation to both family court authorities and local law enforcement agencies. The custody case that Amanda had hoped would transfer Jake to her care instead became evidence of her unfitness to influence any child's welfare. As family members processed the shocking revelations and Marcus faced the reality of criminal prosecution, I realized that the confrontation had achieved everything I'd hoped while protecting Jake from ongoing manipulation and restoring honest relationships within our extended family. The truth had emerged with devastating clarity, and Amanda's carefully constructed web of deception had collapsed under the weight of objective evidence and professional scrutiny. 2 months after that explosive family gathering, the legal and personal consequences of Amanda's deception had reshaped our entire family dynamic in ways that created genuine healing and restored authentic relationships. The criminal prosecution of Marcus Delacroix proceeded through the courts while Amanda faced both civil liability and professional consequences that forced her to confront the reality of her manipulative behavior. Marcus received a sentence of 18 months in federal prison after pleading guilty to charges of fraud, conspiracy, and interference with judicial proceedings. The digital forensics evidence made denial impossible, and his previous pattern of financial manipulation influenced the judge's decision to impose significant penalties that would prevent future schemes. Amanda's employment at Pinnacle Marketing ended when Patricia Walsh discovered additional evidence of her involvement in the company's financial sabotage. Beyond the building access violations, Amanda had been sharing confidential client information with Marcus that he'd used to undermine Pinnacle's business relationships. Her termination included forfeiture of severance benefits and potential civil liability for damages caused by her breach of fiduciary duties. The fraudulent custody case was dismissed with prejudice after family court authorities reviewed the evidence Diana Martinez had compiled. Amanda faced additional legal penalties for perjury and abuse of judicial process, including mandatory community service and professional counseling requirements that addressed her pattern of manipulative behavior. But the most significant changes involved the restoration of honest communication within our family and the strengthening of my relationship with Jake. The revelation of my business success allowed family members to understand that their concerns about my circumstances had been based on deliberate misinformation rather than objective observations. Dad approached me 3 weeks after the confrontation, with obvious embarrassment about the estate planning changes that Amanda had convinced him to implement. "Son, your mother and I owe you a serious apology," he said, as we sat in his garage workshop, surrounded by the woodworking projects that had occupied his retirement years. "We allowed Amanda's manipulation to override our own judgment about your character and abilities. The will changes were a mistake that we've already corrected. The revised estate planning restored my original beneficiary status while establishing appropriate protections for Jake's inheritance. More importantly, it demonstrated my parents' renewed confidence in my judgment and financial management capabilities." Mom's reaction focused on the emotional damage that Amanda's lies had caused throughout our extended family network. "I keep thinking about all the conversations where I worried about you and Jake," she explained during one of our weekly dinners. "Amanda was so convincing and she seemed to know details about your situation that made her concerns seem legitimate. I feel terrible about doubting you when you needed family support." The healing process involved multiple conversations with family members who had received Amanda's manipulative communications over the previous months. Each discussion required patient explanation of the actual facts, while addressing the natural embarrassment people felt about being deceived so thoroughly. Cousin Jennifer drove down from Tucson specifically to apologize for the assumptions she'd made about my circumstances. "Amanda's stories about your financial problems seemed so detailed and specific," Jennifer explained. "She even knew about Jake's school activities and your neighborhood situation in ways that made her claims seem credible. I never imagined that someone would fabricate such an elaborate deception about family members." The restoration of family trust created opportunities for deeper relationships based on honest communication rather than assumptions and secondhand information. Extended family members who had avoided direct contact with me because of Amanda's warnings now felt comfortable resuming normal interactions. Jake's reaction to learning the complete truth about his aunt's behavior showed remarkable maturity for an 8-year-old child. Rather than expressing anger or confusion, he seemed relieved to understand why family gatherings had become so tense and why Amanda's comments had made him feel defensive about our life together. "I knew Aunt Amanda was wrong about us," he told me during one of our weekend breakfast conversations. "Our house is nice, we have good food, and you help me with homework every night. I didn't understand why she kept saying those mean things." Jake's teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, requested a follow-up meeting after learning about the family situation and its impact on Jake's school experience. The meeting provided an opportunity to share documentation of my business success while addressing the educational implications of the family crisis. "Jake has been telling the truth about your professional accomplishments," Mrs. Rodriguez acknowledged with obvious embarrassment. "I apologize for assuming he was fabricating stories to compensate for family problems. Children sometimes create elaborate fantasies, but in this case, Jake was accurately describing his father's success." The school meeting led to Jake's participation in a student presentation about family careers, where he proudly described real estate investment and property management to his classmates. His confidence in discussing our actual circumstances replaced the defensive behavior that had concerned his teacher earlier. The resolution of Pinnacle Marketing's financial crisis created a successful business partnership that benefited everyone involved except the conspirators who had tried to destroy it. Patricia Walsh implemented the restructured lease agreement that stabilized her company's cash flow, while providing me with long-term revenue security and potential growth participation. "Your willingness to work with us during the crisis saved the company," Patricia explained during our quarterly business review meeting. "Without the lease restructuring and your support in documenting Marcus's sabotage, we would have been forced into bankruptcy exactly as he intended." Pinnacle's recovery included expansion into new service areas and client relationships, that generated the revenue growth I shared through our restructured lease agreement. The partnership proved more profitable than the original lease terms while creating a stable foundation for both businesses. My property portfolio continued expanding with 2 additional acquisitions that leveraged the capital appreciation from my existing buildings. The business success that I'd hidden from family members became a source of pride and community respect as word spread about my real estate investments and business partnerships. Jake's relationship with his mother Sarah also improved when she learned about my actual financial circumstances and the resolution of Amanda's false accusations. The reduction in family conflict created more opportunities for cooperative co-parenting that benefited Jake's emotional security and educational development. "I owe you an apology," Sarah admitted during a pickup conversation at Jake's soccer practice. "I believed Amanda's stories about your financial problems and supported her concerns about custody modifications. I should have talked to you directly instead of accepting secondhand information about Jake's welfare." The custody arrangement that Sarah and I had maintained through our divorce remained unchanged, but the improved communication eliminated the tension and suspicion that Amanda's manipulation had created. Jake benefited from seeing his parents work together cooperatively rather than maintaining defensive distance based on false concerns. The most profound transformation involved Amanda herself, who eventually acknowledged the destructive nature of her behavior and sought professional help for the underlying issues that had motivated her deception. The court-mandated counseling revealed patterns of insecurity and competition that had driven her to attack my success rather than pursuing her own goals through honest effort. I convinced myself that I was protecting Jake and helping the family by exposing what I thought were your failures, Amanda explained during a supervised meeting arranged through our family court mediator 6 months after the confrontation. But I realize now that I was actually trying to make myself feel better about my own insecurities by tearing you down. Amanda's acknowledgement of responsibility didn't immediately restore our sibling relationship, but it created the possibility for eventual reconciliation based on honest communication and mutual respect. The legal consequences of her actions served as ongoing reminders of the importance of truthfulness in family relationships. The life lesson that emerged from this painful experience extended far beyond the specific circumstances of our family conflict. The story demonstrated how assumptions and secondhand information can poison relationships while systematic deception destroys the trust that families require for healthy functioning. Jake learned valuable lessons about the importance of honesty and the dangers of believing negative stories about people without seeking direct confirmation. His experience watching family members choose between competing narratives taught him to value truth over convenience and to question claims that seemed designed to damage relationships. "Dad," he said during a recent conversation about the events that had changed our family, "I learned that some people say mean things about others to make themselves feel important. But the truth always comes out eventually, and then everyone knows who was lying." For myself, the experience reinforced the importance of maintaining authentic relationships, even when privacy and discretion seem easier in the short term. My decision to hide my business success from family members had created the information vacuum that Amanda exploited with her false narratives. The broader lesson involved recognizing that family relationships require active maintenance and honest communication to prevent misunderstandings from growing into destructive conflicts. Trust must be earned through consistent behavior over time, but it can be destroyed quickly through deception and manipulation. As I watched Jake complete his homework at our kitchen table on a recent evening, surrounded by the security and comfort that our genuine success had provided, I felt grateful for the painful journey that had brought our family to this point of authentic understanding and renewed trust. The legal battles were concluded, the family relationships were healed, and our future together was built on a foundation of truth rather than assumptions and secondhand concerns. Amanda's attempt to destroy my reputation had instead revealed the strength of character that would guide Jake through his own life challenges with confidence and integrity. Most importantly, Jake learned that fighting back against injustice doesn't require anger or revenge, but rather patience, evidence, and the courage to stand up for truth even when facing family pressure to accept false narratives. The experience that began with humiliation at a family dinner had become a powerful education in personal integrity and family loyalty. The story that started with a job application for a janitorial position had revealed the complex property portfolio and business success that proved sometimes the quiet victories are the most meaningful ones. In the end, the truth about character and capability speaks louder than any manipulation or deception could ever achieve. Looking back on everything that happened, I realized that Amanda had actually done our family a favor by forcing these issues into the open where they could be addressed honestly. Her deception had been painful and destructive, but its exposure had created opportunities for deeper relationships based on authentic understanding rather than assumption and manipulation. The question I want to leave with you is this: have you ever faced a situation where someone close to you tried to undermine your reputation or relationships through deception? How did you handle it? And what did you learn about the importance of standing up for truth even when it's difficult? Thank you for listening to the story about family loyalty, business success, and the power of patience in the face of manipulation. If this resonated with your own experiences or taught you something valuable about handling family conflicts, I'd appreciate you taking a moment to like this video and subscribe for more stories about overcoming challenges through integrity and perseverance. Please share this story with anyone who might benefit from learning about the importance of honest communication in family relationships. And let me know in the comments if you've faced similar challenges with family members who didn't understand or support your goals and achievements. I hope this story reminds you that success is often quiet and private, but truth always emerges when it matters most, and that protecting the people you love sometimes requires fighting battles you never expected to face.